Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys for tapping into yet again another Akem'S analysis. Got a great video for you guys today, covering some really good topics, talking about G5 players in the draft and FCS players in the draft. We're going to be comparing Montana's last 10 seasons versus Montana State's last 10 seasons, see how the trajectory of each program has gone. The FCS Oversight Committee has officially voted in favor to allow FCS teams to play 12 games, regular season games. So we're going to talk about that. We got some other topics on the docket. A new FCS team has just joined the fold. Got some academic suspensions getting sent down, and some other good stuff to talk about. So make sure you guys hit the like, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, make sure you guys leave me a comment down below. I thank you guys for tapping into the video. Remember, 60 to 70% of you guys who are watching my videos are not subscribed, so please hit that subscribe button down below, and we will get straight into it. Okay, the topic of discussion often is Montana versus Montana State. Obviously, I reside in the state of Montana. The two big teams in the state are Montana, Montana State. They've really, for the last at least 3 years, dominated the Big Sky Conference. Previously to that, it was Sac State, but I think personally that the programs, I don't know. We will look at the numbers, talk about some of these seasons, and I just want to do a comparison over the last 10 years. How has each team done? And we'll go season to season. We're going from the 2024 regular season and playoffs, obviously, into the 2015 season. So obviously a couple of regimes at both schools. At Montana, you got Bobby Houck from 2018 to current. And then previously to that, you had Bob Stitt. And then at Montana State, from 2021 to 2024, you've had Brent Vegan. And previously to that, you had Jeff Choate. So we're going to be looking at their seasons. Let me check my sources on that. Give me just a second. I know Jeff Choate was there. I don't know when Jeff Choate got there. That's what I'm trying to. So he got there in 2015. Yeah. So Jeff Choate and Brent Vegan are the two coaches at Montana State, and then Bobby Houck and Bob Stitt, two Bobs, at Montana. So for Montana, 2024, obviously the most recent season, they were 9-5, 5-3 in conference play, and they went to the FCS second round of the SCS playoffs, losing to South Dakota State. A tragic loss for Montana this year. And then at Montana State, 15-1 in the regular season, 8-0 in conference play, and a Big Sky championship, as well as a national championship appearance. They were unsuccessful in that national championship appearance. They lost to North Dakota State. And then we go down to 2023. You got 13-2 for Montana, 7-1 in conference play with a Big Sky championship and a national championship game appearance in that playoffs. That's the best season Montana has had in the last 10 years, that 13-2 season with that national championship berth. And maybe once we're done going through the records, we can kind of look at what really stood out in that season for Montana to make it that far. For Montana State in 2023, they were 8-4, kind of a down year based on how they had been projecting over the last few years. That was a down year for them, 6-2 in conference and only a second round FCS playoff berth where they lost to North Dakota State on a missed field goal, which if you had paid attention to that season at all, that had been their problem throughout the season. So for that to be the thing that got them out of it is tragic. So 2022, Montana was 8-5, 4-4 in conference play. Probably one of the worst conference seasons that Montana has had in a while. That 2022 season, they dropped some odd games. They lost to Sac State. They lost to Montana State. I can't even remember exactly. I don't have it right up pulled in front of me. If we go back to 2022, let's see. They lost to Idaho at home. They lost to Sac State in Sac State. They lost to Weber State in Weber. And then they lost to Montana State at home on national television on College Game Day, the works. And then they made it to the playoffs and lost to North Dakota State. So that was Montana 2022, 8-5 overall. So not a terrible season from any stretch. They made the playoffs, but, not really a successful season in terms of conference play and not really up to the standard that Montana's at. For Montana State in 2022, they got a 12-2 record, 8-0 conference record, Big Sky championship, and they went to the FCS semifinals. So if you're just looking over the last 3 years, you have 2 Big Sky championships for Montana State and 2 semifinals, FCS semifinals berths. For Montana, you have 1 Big Sky championship and 1 national championship appearance. You go down to 2021, my final year at Montana. 10-3 regular season record, 6-2 in conference play, FCS quarterfinals berth, and we lost to James Madison that year. If you look at Montana State, if we extend that one more year for that last 3 years, that 4 years, they got 2 national championship berths, or 3 FCS semifinals berths, 2 Big Sky championships. But they were 12-3 in 2021. They had a really good squad that year. Lance McCutcheon, a young Tommy Malott. McKay was the quarterback during the regular season. Then they had Troy Anderson, obviously, Ty Okada. I mean, they had a really, really good squad. They had Hardy on that team as well. So 7-1 in conference play. They went to the national championship. That was when Tommy Malott played in the playoffs as their starting quarterback once McKay entered the portal. And the rest was history from that point. DMP for both schools. Well, obviously Montana played, but I'm not counting that spring record of 2-0 against Central Washington and Portland State. But Montana was 2-0 in the spring season. Montana State did not play. If you go down to 2019, Jeff Choate's last year, Bobby Houck's second year. Montana was 10-4, 6-2 in conference play with the FCS quarterfinal berth in 2019, losing that game to Weber State. At Montana State, they were 11-4, 6-2 in conference play, and 6-2 in conference play, and they had an FCS semifinal berth. So they went to the FCS semifinals in 2019. Another good year for Jeff Choate, and that was really kind of how their record had been going. And if I just kind of get ahead of myself, you look at the trajectory of Montana State: 2015 5-6, 2016 4-7. 2017 5-6, so kind of bottom tier, middle of the pack. 5-3 record in conference in 2017, 2-6 in 2016, 3-5. So they're not one of the better teams. The 2015, 2016, those 2 Jeff Choate first years, not great. They start getting better in 2017. 2018, they go 8-5. They make it to the playoffs. And mind you, 2015, 2016, 2017, no playoffs for Montana State. 2018, they finally break through. They win that last game against Montana in Missoula. The last second win, wherever they caused the fumble, all that good stuff. They made it to the second round of the FCS playoffs. And then in 2019, after that first playoff berth under Jeff Choate, they went to the semifinals. So I think you kind of see the trajectory. They did not play in 2020, and then 2021, Montana State's in the national championship. They lost, but I mean, you see the upwards trajectory. After that next season, they make it to the semifinals, win the Big Sky championship. After that season, they have a down year, go to the second round. Another season, they win the Big Sky championship and have another national championship appearance. So, I mean, if you just look at the trajectory of Montana State, it seems like they're on up. They take a step, they take a step, they take a step. Let's contrast that with Montana. 2015, they were 8-5, 6-2 in conference play, FCS playoffs, second round. No playoffs in 16, no playoffs in 17, no playoffs in 18. Those records, respectively, were 16, 6-5, 3-5 in conference. 2017, 7-4, 5-3 in conference, and 2018, 6-5, 4-4 in conference. So even if you look at the collective records from each of those seasons, if you look at Montana State, let's go back to 17, they were 5-6. 18, they were 8-5. 19, they were 11-4. In 2021, they were 12-3. Contrast that with Montana: 17, 7-4. 18, they have a down year, 6-5. Next year, Bobby Houck's second year back, 10-4, and 2021, 10-3. So kind of similar seasons in 19, 2021. I guess from the standpoint of going from 17 to 2021, you can see they improved. But then if you go 1 year further in 2022, they win 8-5. If we're looking at the trajectory of the Montana squad, let's do exactly what we just did. 17, 7-4, no playoffs. 18, 6-5, no playoffs. 19, 10-4, FCS quarterfinals, lost to Weber State. 2020, 2021, DMP 2-0 in that spring season. 2021, 10-3, quarterfinals. 8-5, they take a step back. 8-5, 4-4 for 2022. FCS second round. And then 2023, they make a miraculous jump. 13-2, Big Sky Championship, National Championship game appearance. And I guess you could say that 2023 season was the first year where it was mainly Bobby Houck recruits outside of maybe a few guys in that senior class in 2023. I think most of those guys were Bobby Houck recruits. I think, obviously, the Big Sky Defensive Player of the Year Gosh, why am I blanking on my guy's name? Alex Gubner. I believe he was a Stitt recruit. I don't know if he was a Bobby Hauck recruit. He came in 2018. He might have been a Bobby Hauck recruit. But really good season. A few transfer portal guys. You got Clifton McDowell. You got Junior Bergen, who was a recruit. Aaron Fonts, Keelan White. Riley Wilson, transfer portal guy. A really good squad that year. Linebackers were all homegrown. Braxton Hill, Levi Janicaro, and Tyler Flink. All those guys in the middle of that defense. Homegrown guys. Grew up in the system. I'm almost certain all of those guys were Bobby Hauck guys. And then the next year, 2024, 9-5, 5-3 in conference, and an FCS playoff second round berth. Really, the reason I was trying to do this is I saw something on social media comparing the two, and I just wanted to look. What have the last 10 years look for Montana State? So let's look at conference records over those last 10 years. For Montana, you got a 46-26 conference record. For Montana State, you have a 50-22 conference record. Let's see if that's the same amount of games, just to make sure we're judging off the same scale. Okay, we are. 72 games for each program. Montana State gets the nod by a few games. They get 4 more wins in conference play over the last 10 years. Not really surprising, seeing as they got one more Big Sky championship. But if you look at the overall record, 80-38 for Montana State and 77-38 for Montana. I think in that overall, I can't understand how. Oh yeah, because some might be playing more playoff games than the other. Montana State playing more playoff games than Montana over the last few years. So yeah, I should have put playoff wins on here. I didn't. That's probably a miss by me. But you look at 10-win seasons. 3 10-win seasons for Montana. 4 10-win seasons for Montana State. Playoff appearances. Each have 6 playoff appearances. So even their Big Sky championships, 1-1. If we're talking about national championship bursts, which I didn't put on there, but it's not hard to do the math. 2 national championship bursts for Montana State. 1 for Montana. If we even look at semifinals appearances, Montana State has 4 FCS semifinal. But if I'm comparing seasons where you didn't win a national championship, it feels like I'm talking about mediocrity. We're just talking about the overall success of these programs. And if you look at the numbers, it seems that Montana State has been on the upward trajectory. Montana has kind of stalled out, if you want to stay. They had the national championship berth in 2023, which seems like, the next year you're supposed to take that step and go, but they honestly took a huge step back in 2024. So my main question is, what led Montana to have that season, the anomaly in 2023? And then also, what has led Montana State to be as successful as they have been? Well, a few things that I think have contributed to it is, for Montana State, consistent recruiting, not only in the portal, but also, I guess you can say Montana State, obviously if they've had success, they've done all right in the portal. But I think more so what Montana State has done is develop. You look at some of the top players these past few years. Tommy Mellott. Obviously, he's an extremely gifted athlete, but a homegrown guy. Taco Dowler, a homegrown guy. Brody Grebe, a homegrown guy. Kenneth Iden, one of the better young players coming up in that program, a homegrown guy. Adam Jones, finalist for the Jerry Rice Award, a homegrown guy. Marcus Weir, their best offensive lineman, a homegrown guy. You look all over their squad, it's homegrown talent. Rylan Ort, one of the better safeties on their squad, a homegrown talent. You look all over their squad, and it's guys who are from the state of Montana that have been developed within the program. They didn't start out as they were. You look at Montana. Let's go back to Montana's 2023 season. You had Alex Gubner, who was not a Montana native, but a homegrown Montana product who started in the program and came up. Clifton McDowell was a transfer in. Riley Wilson was a transfer in. The corners, Ronald Jackson Jr. was a transfer in. Trevin Gradney, a homegrown guy. The running backs, Eli Gilman was a Montana guy who started at Montana, came up in the program. The receivers were homegrown guys. So, I don't know. It just feels like some of the better talent. You look at one of the best players on that Montana squad in 2023, Clifton McDowell, was not a Montana guy, was a transfer, and he transferred out after the season. I think you have to get guys who not necessarily are Montana guys, but guys who are loyal to the soil you can develop within the program, which is getting harder and harder every year. I fully understand that, but just trying to understand why one of the best teams in the Big Sky Conference is having trouble seeing success when you would think that they should be able to get all the best recruits. They should be able to get all the best talent. People should want to play here. They got an indoor facility. They got the best stadium in the conference, the most fans in the conference. I don't know. They're getting the most coverage. You're gonna get attention. The NIL potential is there. I mean, I don't know. I absolutely don't know. I think coaching honestly plays a part in this too. I think culture plays a part in this as well. I mean, I obviously played under Coach Houck. He has an interesting culture. I think Coach Brent Vegan, I have never played for Brent Vegan. He seems a bit more like a player's coach. I don't think I would categorize either Coach Houck or Brent Vegan as player coaches just based on what I know. But I think Brent Vegan seems a little bit more like a player-friendly coach than Bobby Houck, certainly. I think all of that plays a part into it. I think there are some old school ways at Montana that probably need to be pushed out of the football program. I mean, I think to some extent you have to get with the times, and it just, if you want to see success from this Montana squad, you're definitely going to need to turn some things around. But yeah, comparing the last 10 seasons for Montana and Montana State, you guys tell me what you guys think about these numbers. Do you guys think they're just whatever, or what do you guys think contributed to these numbers? I know I mentioned a few factors that I think contributed to these numbers. What do you guys think has contributed to Montana kind of stalemating, if you will, over the last few years, not really progressing? Outside of 2023, Montana really has been kind of plateaued. I'd say at that second round quarterfinals mark, because if you look at 2019 FCS quarterfinals, 2021 quarterfinals, 2022 second round, 2023 national championship, and then back in 2024 to the second round. And even before that, in 2015, they made it to the second round of the playoffs. So, I mean, Montana has really been a quarterfinals, second round of the playoffs type team. You look at Montana State, second round, semifinals, championship appearance, semifinals, second round, championship appearance. So 3 out of the last 4 years, Montana State has made it to the FCS semifinals. If you look at the 3 of the last 4 years for Montana, 2 of the years they made it to the second round. 1 year they made it to the quarterfinals. 1 year they made it to the national championship. So it seems like it's all over the place. Montana State has had a consistent trajectory. I don't know 100% what is the one solution fix all, but you guys let me know what your thoughts about this are down below, and I will move on. Okay, this is exciting news. I talked about this a little bit earlier in the offseason, but the FCS Oversight Committee has officially voted in favor to allow FCS teams to play 12 regular season games every season starting in 2026, making what has been week 0 the new week 1, which is interesting. D1 Council would need to make final approval. Per Sam Herder, some pros to this. Media exposure as FCS games could take over slots Thursday through Saturday of what has been week 0. That is very exciting. If you look back at that Montana State game in week 0 against New Mexico, super, super exciting game. I really love the TV exposure opportunity there. Chance of better non-conference games for these TV opportunities. So maybe I think he's saying you can get some high-level matchups in those non-conference weeks. So say an NDSU versus Montana State, a Montana versus South Dakota State, a Montana versus Incarnate Word. I mean, some of those top teams in the conference, some of those top teams in the country, you can put those in those week 0 slots. And not only are you going to get good exposure for both teams, but, it's a good opportunity to get a great non-conference game for both teams. And whoever comes out with that victory, it's going to lead to good success in the playoffs or good seeding in the playoffs. Increased ticket revenue opportunities. Yeah, so another home game added to your schedule means you have another opportunity to get higher, to increase your ticket revenue. That just means more fans are being able to come see your team play for one more week. I don't know what that does for the TV deals, but I think it's definitely a better selling for the TV deal, because if as the Big Sky Conference you can sell, or even not even, I don't know how that would be sold. I think the Big Sky Conference, you're only selling the Big Sky games, but I don't know who's selling these games. If Montana is selling these games, if you're able to sell these non-conference games, if you're able to make money from these, that adds to your revenue. Flexibility for buys and scheduling as a 12th game would be optional. Okay, so I do like that. You don't have to play a 12th game. You can play a 12th game. I do think probably most of the teams will. If I had to guess, I think most teams, the money opportunity is too good for teams not to want to add that 12th game. But I think also another thing that lends itself to you wanting and needing probably to book a 12th game is because of the playoffs. I mean, just look at South Dakota. Obviously, it was out of their control this past year, but South Dakota only played 4 regular season, or not 4. They only played 11 regular season games this past year, and they were the 4th seed in the FCS playoffs, which in a fair world, they probably should have been the 1 or 2, or they should have been higher than North Dakota State. I'll say that. They beat North Dakota State in the regular season. I think they were I'm trying to think of the right word. I think they were docked, or I think they not so much they got a penalty, but I think it felt as though they were penalized for not playing that 12th game, even though they beat who was it? It ended up being the number 2 seed. I think Montana State was the number 2 seed. They ended up beating the number 2 seed. So from that standpoint, I mean, just sucks. So 12 games is exciting. This is something that I'm excited to see. 4 non-conference games plus those 8 conference games. I think, just like Sam Herder said, this gives the possibility for some big time matchups. Now, the thing that's interesting about college, and I don't know if they could do this, but I wish that in college they would book I don't know what the logistics on this. I don't think this would work because they're signing like contracts with a lot of these non-conference teams, so we're going to play you over the next 4 or 5 years. This is when we'll play, this is when you play you. But I wish it had more of a pro feel, just so that we could get some of those play, like say, Montana lost to SDSU in the playoffs last year. Why not run it back this year? I mean, it was obviously a blowout, so a lot of people might not want to see that. That's a bad example. But Montana State, NDSU. NDSU barely beat Montana State. I think Montana State started that game off pretty bad in the first half. They really played their best ball in the second half. And if they would have played that way both halves, they probably would have won the game. Why not? Why can't we get Montana State and NDSU to run it back the first couple games of the season? Why can't that be the season opener? Obviously that would take them scheduling the games out before the season, which doesn't happen in college football. But I do think this still does leave the possibility for some big time matchups, maybe some MVFC Big Sky matchups, CAA Big Sky matchups. The Big Sky and CAA don't play often. I would love to see like a co-op with the CAA to get some of those teams to play, or maybe even the Southland, UAC, SoCon. I would love to know what it would take for some of those. The SoCon has been coming up here. Western Carolina came up there last year. Furman played in the playoffs this past year, so they do play, but I would love to see more of that. But FCS Oversight Committee has voted in favor to allow FCS teams to play 12 regular season games, so that is exciting, and I'm excited to see what some of these schedules going forward look like. So you guys let me know what you think about that down below, and I will move on. Okay, there's a new FCS football member. The University of New Haven accepts an NEC membership invite. Now, if you've watched my channel, you know what I think about the NEC. So we're not going to get too much into that right now. But the University of New Haven has accepted a full membership invitation from the Northeast Conference Council of Presidents and will officially join the league on July 1st. So July 1st, 2025. So they're going to be playing in the NEC this year. The announcement was made today by NEC Commissioner Noreen Morris and University of New Haven President Jens Fredrickson, PhD. So I want to look at New Haven's schedule from last year and look at what they did last season. So New Haven last season was 8-3, 7-1 in conference play. Did they win their conference championship? I'm not sure. I don't even know what conference this is. I don't even know. Does it say in the news release where they're coming from? Located on Connecticut's southeastern coast, New Haven will begin its transition to NCAA Division I. Sorry. Let me add my face in here. Located on Connecticut's southern coast, New Haven will begin its transition to NCAA Division I and NEC during the 2025-2026 academic year. The Chargers will attain full Division I membership in the 2028-2029 following the NCAA mandated reclassification period. So they will be in the NEC playing the NEC schedule this year, I believe, but I don't believe that they will be eligible for the playoffs. They already have. Is this an NEC schedule? This is not an NEC schedule. So they're not even going to be playing an NEC schedule this year, but that's part of them being in their transition year. So Slippery Rock, Pace, Franklin Pierce, Bentley, American International, Southern Connecticut State, Assumption, Post, St. Anselm, Pace. So they're Division II, championship first round at Slippery Rock, and they lost 14-7. So they are a a D2 squad coming up to the FCS. I don't know so much about this squad, about New Haven, but it's exciting news that they're coming to the FCS. But I'm going to be real. This just adds to it's tough for the NEC because obviously you want to add to the ranks of your teams, but it's like, how good are the teams that you're adding? A lot of times when a lot of FCS teams, lately what FCS teams like the Patriot League has been doing, the Patriot League is taking teams from the CAA, adding them to their conference. Or like The WAC, the UAC. The UAC took a bunch of teams from the Southland, the OVC, maybe the SoCon, maybe the Big Sky, added them all to the UAC and made the United Athletic Conference. Like Southern Utah, they used to be Big Sky. Like Central Arkansas, I believe they used to be Southland, or Big South or OVC, one of those conferences. But a bunch of teams out of different conferences. Eastern Kentucky used to be OVC, Big South, I believe. Now they're UAC. I mean, and the UAC had 3 playoff teams last year, and they both had second round playoff games. So I mean, small success. But the NEC, I just feel like the NEC is working backwards. And I mean, I don't know what the draw is for another team to want to join the NEC. I don't know what type of money they have. I don't know what type of TV deal they're working off of. But it just seems like a bottom feeder conference. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I know it can be taken disrespectful, but it just seems like a conference who is not going to have a ton of success. They're going to make the playoffs, but are they going to be great in the playoffs? They're going to get a playoff. They're going to get an auto bid out of their conference for the conference champion. But outside of that, they're probably never going to get 2 playoff teams in the playoffs. And they're probably not ever going to be super, super competitive. But I have faith in the NEC conference that they can find their way in the FCS and eventually build their way up. They actually just did have one of their teams also reclassify. So as they're having a team join in the fall, being University of New Haven, they also have a team leaving. St. Francis is declassifying to D3, not even D2. They're going all the way down to D3. Their basketball is going down to D3, and I think it's the whole institution. Basketball is going down to D3. Football is going down to D3. So, I mean, and St. Francis was a decent team back in 2015, 2016. They actually had a draft pick, I think, out of St. Francis. So, out of that NEC conference, I mean, it's not that they're totally inept at football, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see how 2025 goes. I'm excited to see what the NEC is able to do in 2025. And, you know, happy for New Haven. They were 8-3 last year, 7-1 in conference play. I think a 7-1 record would win you your conference, but I don't know. But I'm excited to see what it's going to turn out for these squads. You guys let me know what you guys think about New Haven joining the NEC conference. Do you think it's another addition to their conference, or do you think they're going to add some I mean, this is what I think. I think if teams are looking to add squads to the FCS, you go get a Ferris State. You go get an MSU Minnetonka, whatever the school is. You go get some of those better D2 squads. You go get some of those teams that are actually winning and are actually doing, like take the Pioneer League, for example, when they added St. Thomas. St. Thomas was a staple at the Division II. They have a ton of money. It makes sense to add them to the Pioneer. They're a non-scholarship team in football, but they have been better than most in that conference thus so far since being in that conference. I think they were one game away from winning the conference 2023, 2024. I think they were above average, maybe towards the top second or third team in the conference. I mean, they've been good. You look at the NEC, they added Mercyhurst this past year. Not good. And then Utah Tech, who I think plays in the UAC? I think Utah Tech plays in the UAC. They haven't been great. They've been getting beat up by a lot of Big Sky teams. So there's a contrast to each team. But you guys let me know what you guys think about New Haven joining the ranks, and I will move on. Okay, I want to bring up, this is news from last week. Clemson and Notre Dame have agreed to a 12-year football series running from 2027 to 2038. Ross Dellinger reports. Now, my question about this has nothing to do with Clemson or Notre Dame. My question is, how does Sac State replicate this? Obviously, Notre Dame is one of the staples in college football, and Clemson just signed a 12-year deal from 27 to 38 that they are going to play them every year for the next 10 years. Sac State needs something like this. They need something like this with Montana. They need something like this with Montana State. Honestly, they're going up to independent. So I'm getting behind myself. Sac State, how do they replicate this at the FCS or at the FBS? How do they replicate this as an independent if they are approved to be an independent? That is my question. How are you gonna get some of the better G5 programs? Like, how do you get that with a Boise State? How do you get that with an Oregon who's very close to you? How do you get that with a not necessarily, I don't want to say a Cal. I mean, they need contracts with the best teams in the conference. Or best teams in the country. But obviously, you're not going to get the Alabamas, the SECs, all that stuff. Maybe not currently. You need some consistent games that you're going to play against better competition. Boise State is certainly one of those schools. I'm trying to think about the G5 schools. I mean, but the main question is, how does Sac State replicate this? I think this is one of the biggest hurdles that I don't think a lot of people are talking about in that Sac State going independent is putting that schedule together and putting a schedule together that, one, is going to be competitive and is going to make teams want to pull you into their conference. So you're probably going to have to schedule a lot of those Mountain West teams. You're probably also going to have to schedule a lot of Pac-12, Pac-2 teams, the new Pac-2, Oregon, or I guess Oregon and, Oregon at least is in the Big Ten. So you got to try to find a way to play Oregon. You got to try to find a way to play UW. You got to try to find a way to play UCLA. You got to find a way to play USC. I mean, those are the teams that you need to be playing against. Boise State is certainly a team you need to play against. Fresno State, San Jose State, I think because they're close, you put them on the schedule. But I think Sac State is probably going to be looking at a pretty regional schedule. I don't know on the East Coast. I mean, you can probably get some Sun Belt teams. Maybe you get some Big 12 teams, ACC teams. I don't know. That is the one hurdle with an independent squad is looking to put that schedule together. But I think if they can get something like what Notre Dame and Clemson just did against a staple program where we know we're going to play them for a certain amount of years. Obviously, Notre Dame has their own TV deal, so I don't know what that looks like from that standpoint. But that was just a question I had. How does Sac State replicate that? What does it look like for Sac State? Who are the consistent players that they are going to be playing against year over year? I mean, let's look at Sac State's schedule this year. Sac State football schedule. I looked up Sac State's schedule. They're giving me the school schedule. I don't need that. So, this year they got South Dakota State, they got Nevada, they got Mercyhurst. If we're just looking at the first three, I don't know. They could really give South Dakota State a run for their money. I don't think South Dakota State's going to be as good as they were previous years. I think they're still going to have that pedigree. So they're going to be a hard out August 30th. Nevada, Jeff Choate out there. Mercyhurst, that's a win for them. I say I could really see them being – I could see them being 3-0. I could see them being 2-1, the one being Nevada, or the one being South Dakota, or I could see them being 1-2. One being Mercyhurst, 2 at South Dakota. But I think Sac State is putting together a good squad, man. I think Brendan Marion's putting together a good squad. They got Central Arkansas, so they are playing 12 this year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, yeah. So 12 regular season games for Sac State this year. I like this non-conference schedule. I really do. Central Arkansas is a good squad. They did not make the playoffs last year, but, it is what it is. Let's see if they have any future schedules on here. Nope, they don't. And then Big Sky, they're playing Cal Poly, Weber State, Northern Colorado, Montana, Eastern Washington, Portland State, Idaho, UC Davis. So what I think would be fun and fruitful for both teams is Montana schedules Sac State yearly, so you're playing an FBS team every year. I don't know if Sac State would want to do that, but I like that idea of, play the Montanas and Montana States every year. And maybe it's not a good win for you if you win, but it's a really good win for Montana. So you got to give up a little to get some. Maybe there's not a big TV sale for them there to the networks. Who knows? Because that's a new consideration now with Sac State. As you're leaving the conference, when you leave the Big Sky Conference, you no longer fall under the Big Sky TV deal. So you got to go out there and hunt your own TV deal, your own partnership. We'll see what that looks like. But you got to be able to schedule some of the staple teams in this region of the country. But I also think it would be good if Montana can find a way to get Sac State on their schedule consistently if they are going to be one of the better FBS schools. I think it just looks good for playoffs for Montana. If they're going to stay around the FCS ranks, I think it looks good if they're able to beat a Sac State. If not, take them off. But obviously that's years in advance also. So it's just such a nuanced situation with this. But looking at Sac State's schedule, it's very interesting. But that's not even the whole point. That's not even the point I was trying to make. That's just a caveat I went on. I just want to know what that looks like. What's that going to look like? Sac State putting together their and if I go to this article on 3, Notre Dame and Clemson have met fairly regularly over the past few years to bring them to 8 matchups all time. Now the Fighting Irish and Tigers will be doubling that series through the next decade with the latest scheduling news between the two starting in 2027. Per sources speaking to Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports, Notre Dame and Clemson have agreed to a 12-year-long scheduling deal between them through 2038. Dellinger also noted that with this working as a part of the Irish's structure with the ACC, this could also involve games between them and 2 other top brands in the conference with Florida State and Miami. So not only does it include Clemson, but also it could include Florida State and Miami, which are top teams, top name brands, not top teams currently, but not top name brands. I guess Miami was a top team last year, but top name brands and I guess Florida State was in 2023. So Let me just shut up. Notre Dame and Clemson have struck a 12-year animal. That's what they tweeted. Irish always expect to play FSU and Miami more regularly. So kind of trying to co-op. I don't know why the Irish just don't go ahead and join the ACC, but they're co-oping with some of the teams in the conference to play. I think that's what Sac State's going to have to do is kind of get a deal like that. Like, hey, let us latch on to the Mountain West. Even though we're not a member, we're not an affiliate member, we're an independent. Is there a way that we can sign a multi-year agreement with some of your schools to where we can play this school every year, this school? I mean, that is what they need. As noted by Dellinger, this series, despite the two programs agreeing to independently, will count as one of the 5 games that Notre Dame will play against teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference as a part of their 5-game affiliation with the league. Teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It is now a question of how this will fit onto the league slate and the current rotation that they have with the Fighting Irish, especially if they're going to work the Tigers as well as the Seminoles and Hurricanes more regularly into the 3 of those 5 games. It also gives Clemson another top-rated game outside of their 8-game schedule against the league in the ACC. So basically, giving Notre Dame some consistent games to play, some consistent competition to play, but also it's a deal they have with the ACC. I would be interested to know, what does the ACC get out of this? Because obviously Notre Dame, like I said, is under their own TV deal. That's, they're an independent school. Obviously, it seems like they have some type of affiliation partnership with the ACC to where you're going to play a certain amount of games against our conference each year. Not only does that give Notre Dame some security in knowing where some of those games each year are going to come from, but that also gives Clemson, not even Clemson, but the ACC the ability to play against a top-tier ranked team in Notre Dame each year. So how does Sac State get something like that? Who is willing to allow Sac State to get something like that is the question, because if these conferences didn't want to add Sac State as a team, are they at least willing to allow Sac State's teams to play against their members? And are they willing to form a deal similar to how Notre Dame and Clemson in the ACC did with, saying that we are going to play 5 games against the Mountain West each year, or we're going to play 5 games against the Pac-2 opponents each year. That doesn't make us a member of the Pac-2, but 5 teams are going to play against us each year, and everybody's going to be happy. I don't know. It's going to be very exciting to see how Sac State, if they get approval, and how they're able to put their schedule together when and if they get approval. But I think there's exciting things happening in the college football ranks, especially for Sac State. We will see how all that turns out. You guys let me know what you think about that down below, and I will move on. Akron football's multi-year academic progress rate has dropped below 914. Now, I don't know what this number is based off of. Got a couple of articles that I can pull up once I finish with these quotes. The Zips are now ineligible for bowl games due to academic reasons. That's per Reddit College Football. This is per Sam Herder. FBS member Akron and FCS members Mississippi Valley State and Arkansas Pine Bluff, so 2 HBCUs and then Akron FBS school, have received 2025 football postseason bans. Not really a problem for Mississippi Valley State or Arkansas Pine Bluff, from my understanding, due to low multi-year APR rates. At FAMU, Missouri State, Murray State, and Utah Tech received practice time reduction. So that must be like probation. The FAMU, Missouri State, Murray State, and Utah Tech, and then the other people must have already been through probation, didn't improve. Now, the second I heard this made me think of, this is exactly why Coach Houck has grade point average incentives in his contract. This is why they do the academic dinner for the football team, because you want to incentivize your athletes to do well academically, but also the NCAA is watching. If you're not doing good academically, we are going to come. I mean, and this is where you have to applaud the NCAA, because despite all the mess ups they've had over the years, they still hold a purpose, and student athletes still mean something to the NCAA. Although they've messed up royally with NIL, probably with the transfer portal as well, they might have ruined college football for good. They still hold value, and that is in holding these universities accountable. Now, are they holding everybody accountable at the same rate? I don't know. That's a different discussion for a different day. We can bring up some articles and do some research on that as to if they have been holding teams accountable at the right level each year. But I do think this shows is that being a student athlete still matters. You guys are there first and foremost, to get your college education, to get that degree, these universities are universities first. They're schools of higher learning. They're institutions of higher learning first before they are athletic institutions. Now, obviously, the way sports are and the way the world works is sports dominate and they take over. But these institutions first existed to facilitate higher education, getting a master's, a bachelor's, a doctorate, becoming an educated individual to further your professional career in the workforce or whatever that looks like. They turned into, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when I was talking about an article that was in Hero Sports. Can't remember Summer. I can't remember the writer's name. I don't want to mess it up right now, but he basically mentioned, look at any university's mission statement. Does it say anything about athletics? Most of them do not. I don't think any of them do. I don't know for fact. You can fact check me on that, but most of them probably don't mention athletics at all. And that is why these schools are getting these sanctions, because first and foremost, you're here to get a college education. So let's read the article. Akron football. This is per On3 Sports, written by Nick Schultz of On3 Sports. The title is Akron football multi-year academic progress rate drops to 914. Zips ineligible for bowl games. I don't think that's a huge problem for Akron anyway, but Akron's football multi-year academic progress rate dropped to 914. As a result, the Zips are ineligible for bowl games due to academic reasons. Akron faced a reduction in practice last season as a part of a level 1 penalty. So exactly what I was saying. Sam Herder mentioned that FAMU, Missouri State, Murray State, and Utah Tech received practice reductions. So that means this is a warning. You can practice less, but also that hurts you too. Any coach knows practice time is huge. You need that time to put the install in, to be able to get that repetition, to be able to, it's huge. I'm not going to go into all the details. If you know sports at all, you know practice is important. Akron faced a reduction in practice last season as a part of a level 1 penalty when the APR fell below 925, below the 930 threshold for postseason eligibility. Now, what I want to know is, how are you getting to this 914 number, this 925, 930 number? What is put together is, I don't know, academic progress rate. How is that judged? I would love to know what metric they're judging that on. However, that number dropped to 914 during the 2023-2024 academic year, which means the program is not postseason eligible. 2023-2024. But so this penalty is being levied in the 2025 season, but they dropped to the 914 number during the 2023-2024 academic year. How does that work? The NCAA suspended certain APR penalties as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, but announced those punishments would return for the 2024-2025 season. Akron is now set to be the first program to miss the postseason for academic reasons since Idaho from 2014 to 2017. Other programs to fall under 913, such as LSU and New Mexico State in 2023, received a COVID-19 waiver. So basically, LSU and New Mexico did the same thing, but they didn't receive the same penalties as Akron did. This is interesting because it seems like they're retroactively levying the punishment. Missouri State, which is preparing to make the leap from the FCS Missouri Valley Football Conference to FBS Conference USA, will face a practice reduction as a part of a level 1 penalty from 2024 for a 924 APR. The Bears are ineligible for bowl games for their first 2 FBS seasons as they make the transition from FCS. Akron went 4-8 in 2024, including a 3-5 mark and MAC play in Joe Moorhead's 3rd season as head coach. The Zips has not played in a bowl game since the Boca Raton Bowl as a part of a 7-7 record in 2017. Damn. They last finished above 500 in 2015 when they went 8-5 after winning the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. So it seems like retroactively, because it says that they had that 914 number for the 2023-2024 academic year. This penalty is not being levied until the 2025-2026 season is what it seems like. Either way, excuse me. Either way, not good. It is good to see that academics and college degrees still matter in college sports to some extent. Excited, not obviously happy to see these teams get these penalties, but excited to see that, the NCAA is still doing something. still doing something to help these kids better their lives and better their careers. What do you guys think about these penalties? I didn't even know this was a thing, and I'm still seen to be a little bit confused about it a little bit. Like, why is it retroactive? Why is it a year away? Why not in this past year were they given that penalty? I guess they dropped to the 9-14 in 2023. They were given the penalty in 2024. They didn't fix it in 2024. So in 2025, they were given the NCAA struck the hammer down. But also another point that I was making was that this is exactly why Coach Houck, for example, and all these coaches get those incentives, those academic incentives put in your contract. Student, athlete. You're a student before you're an athlete. And obviously, we can get hurt if you're not taking care of business in the classroom. Like, if you're not taking care of business in the classroom, why are we here? I mean, obviously, you're here to play sports. I understand that. But if you're not also taking care of things in the classroom, I'm not doing my job as a head coach. So love those incentives. Loves that the NCAA is actually stepping in to do something positive for these athletes. You guys let me know what you guys think about this. Do you guys think it's bogus? Do you guys think the NCAA could use their time doing some better things? Or you guys let me know. I don't know. You guys let me know, and I will move on. Okay, I got a question I want to send out there. Would NFL teams rather take a top-tier FCS player over a top-tier G5 player? Now, this comes from a comment under one of my videos this past week. Can't remember if it was under a short or if it was under my long form video, but I don't know. It's the FCS definitely had a jump in draft picks, 3 more draft picks in 2025 than they did have in 2024, 15 up from the number of 12 in 2024, I mean. And it seems like the FCS players are really seen on the same level as G5 players. And I talked to this a little bit about this with Zach McKinnell when he came on the channel. I'll have to bring him back on very soon. But I got another question, or not another question, but really like another statement that I wanted to bring up in conjunction with this question. Tommy Millott and Cam Miller being drafted before Quinn Ewers shows that level doesn't matter. I mean, Quinn Ewers was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, went to Ohio State, transferred to Texas, played in the college football playoff, played for conference championships multiple times, played for national champion. Did they play for the national champion? No, they didn't. What was it? Washington versus, I'm blanking on the FBS national championship last year. Michigan. Washington versus Michigan, and Michigan won. I mean, two FCS quarterbacks, obviously one going as a receiver, got drafted before Quinn Ewers. I mean, I think if you told somebody that at the beginning of 2024 or the beginning of the 2024 football season, they'd call you absolutely crazy. I think Quinn Ewers was one of the top 5 rated quarterbacks before the season last year, definitely top 10. And you just see how that played out. You certainly see how that played out. And then with the G5 topic, I mean, Gray Zabel going 18th overall to the Seahawks. I guess you got some top G5 players going off the board, but I mean, the FCS players, it just seems like scouts see them as the same. I mean, G5, FCS, Montana State beat New Mexico last year, and that's a G5 program. And these G5s are recruiting a lot of the FCS talent, and I think that's another point to be made about it too, is these G5 schools are getting all of the top FCS talent. So why would we see you guys as any different? You have all of the players that were at the FCS. You got all the players that were just dominating at the FCS. Some of the top G5 players are obviously going P4, but a lot of the FCS talent that you see at the FCS level, they're getting poached by those G5 schools. A lot of Power 4 schools too, but those G5 schools are getting a lot of the FCS talent too. And I think from a scout's perspective, it's like, why would we judge you any differently when you guys are all, grabbing from the same pool? You guys are grabbing from the same pool of players. And that really probably means that they're judging the film the same. An FCS corner is judged the same as a G5 corner. Now, personally, I think a G5 corner is probably a better player than an FCS corner, but that's not always 100% correct. I mean, so it just shows you that it doesn't matter the level, and I think that's the biggest point here, is that if you are successful, and it's always been said, but I think it just needs to be reiterated. If you play well, they will find you. You don't need to worry about transferring up to the P4. You don't need to worry about taking that money. I mean, take the money. I am in no position to tell anybody not to take any money. If you are offered a bag, go take that bag and make sure the contract is right. Make sure the stipulations in the contract are fitting for you, and you're gonna get what you deserve. But I just it doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, the G5's the power 4 players are gonna get they're gonna be the premium. They're gonna be seen as a premium. I think the Big Ten had the most draft picks they've ever had. I think the SEC might have had a lot of draft picks this year as well. I think the Big Ten had close to like 80 draft picks this year. Just absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, the conference is huge, but they had a ton of draft picks this year, and I think they had a record number for their conference. But outside of that, it seems like a lot of players are still getting the looks they want if you perform well. You perform on the field, you perform in the pre-draft process, you be a smart player, have a high IQ, know how to talk to people, they will find you and they will get you in their building. Just take care of things on the field. That is the point that needs to be made. Take care of things on the field. Everything else works itself out. Absolutely everything self works it out. And I think Tommy Mellott, Cam Miller going over Quinn Ewers is a perfect example of that. Gray Zabel going in the first round is a perfect example of that. Trevor Penning a couple years ago at Northern Iowa going in the first round. Spencer Brown, I think he was a second round. I mean, there's a bunch of examples where they play well, they test well, and they get the outcome they're looking for. Trey Lance. I mean, a lot of San Francisco fans might not love that pick, might not have agreed with that pick at the time, or they probably loved it at the time. But now looking back, you're like, was that the best opportunity? Was that the best pick for them? You know, but he played well, he tested well, and he got drafted really high, which is exactly what we're talking about. So with the question, would NFL teams rather take a top tier FCS player over a top tier G5 player? They wouldn't, and you can't say that they would. And I don't think that I just don't think the data shows that. I think it's getting very evened out. These guys are getting the same players, they're getting the same talent. Yeah. You guys let me know what you guys think about that down below, and I will move on. Okay, that is going to conclude Akem'S analysis for this week. I want to remind you guys to please subscribe to the channel. A lot of people who watch my channel, 60 to 70% of the people who watch my channel are not subscribed to my channel. So please just hit that subscribe button. I'm getting near 2,000 subscribers. Really want to get up to that 2,000 subscriber number before the season. So help me out. Give your boy a subscription and follow the channel. You guys let me know if there's anything you guys want me to talk about down below. I really appreciate you guys tapping into the channel. Make sure you guys hit a like. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys leave me a comment down below like I just said. And I will catch you guys next time. See you later.